We're about to embark on Halo Infinite in a few short months, and there's a lot of questions that need answering for both longtime fans and newcomers to the series. So the goal of this video is to answer as many questions as possible on what you need to know before you play Halo Infinite. There's not a whole lot we know about the story in Halo Infinite, even though that this is being recorded in late September and the game launches in December. There's a lot of unanswered questions about this story. We do know that Halo Infinite takes place after the events of Halo 5 Guardians. We continue to play as the Master Chief once again to face a new threat known as the Banished on a new Halo ring. It's been dubbed the Zeta Halo ring. There's also some points that we can assume that will most likely take place in Halo Infinite, such as we will face the Prometheans once again and Cortana at some point. We will probably link up with Cutter and Red Team, the characters from Halo Wars 2. We'll probably see Fire Team Osiris and the Arbiter at some point. And we should expect some of the supporting characters to return, such as Commander Lasky, the AI Roland, Dr. Halsey, Spartan Sarah Palmer, and new characters such as Brohammer, and most likely other characters that will be introduced throughout the Halo Infinite campaign. The Guardian crisis has still not been dealt with following the events of Halo 5, so that is most likely something that they may touch on in Halo Infinite. If you're curious on what games that you should play, there's really two paths to choose, and it depends on how in-depth you want to be in the overall Halo experience. If you're a returning player for Halo, or perhaps you're a new player and you want to understand everything about these characters, everything with their stories, their background, their dynamics with one another, the settings, all of those sorts of things, it's probably best to play Halos 1 through 5. You can play Halos 1 through 4 on the Master Chief Collection, and I also recommend that you play Halo Wars 2. It's not just because I'm a Halo Wars 2 fan, but it's because Halo Wars 2 introduces the Banished faction and the motivations of what makes the Banished, and also who Aatrox is and how ultimately evil that character is. That's definitely going to be something that's picked up in Halo Infinite. So if you want to really understand the Banished, I highly recommend you play Halo Wars 2. And Halo Wars 2 also picks up 20 or almost 30 years after the events of Halo Wars 1. So if you really want to know how the characters in the Halo Wars series, their dynamics, play along with one another, you should probably play Halo Wars 1 as well, but that's not necessarily required to understand the entire story of what will happen in Halo Infinite. If you want the most simple experience, like maybe you don't have enough time or even the desire to play 5 or 6 or 7 Halo games to be prepared for Halo Infinite, I think you could just simply play Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Wars 2. I think the events of Halo 4 really kind of trickled down into Halo 5, and Halo Wars 2, of course, like I said earlier, introduces the Banished faction. So to get a feeling of how the tension for a lot of these characters and these factions and who the Banished are and all these other sorts of things, to get the simplest experience, again, Halo 4, Halo 5, and Halo Wars 2. All of these games are available on Game Pass, by the way. If you're a Game Pass subscriber, you can play all of these titles on Xbox or PC, so it's really your platform of choice to experience these titles before the game launches. Finally, there's going to be some unanswered questions in Halo Infinite that I really hope that the game answers. And I'm not trying to go too far in depth with these questions. I'm not trying to be a lore connoisseur or anything like that. But these are some questions I would prefer to be answered in Halo Infinite, and I'm sure you have some as well. But here are a quick list of questions that I have that I want answered. Will we see the Flood on this Halo ring? In the last 2 previous Halo rings that we visited in Halo 1 and Halo 2, and arguably even in Halo 3, we did see the Flood. So will the Flood make a return on this Halo ring? Also, what happened to the Prometheans? We saw a lot of Promethean footage leading up to the releases of Halo 4 and Halo 5, and I don't think we've seen any Promethean footage yet of campaign for Halo Infinite. I think that's intentional, by the way, but we'll have to wait and see. That's entirely speculation. I'd also love to know how the Banished took over the Zeta Halo ring. Are they kind of occupying this for some sort of religious purpose, like how the Covenant previously did? Or do they have some other motivations? Do they deliberately want to start a war by activating this Halo ring? I'm not entirely sure. I hope that that's answered. I'm sure it will be. Where are other supporting characters, particularly the Halo Wars characters, now that they have essentially been brought forward in time to be fighting the Banished along the same time during the events of Halo 5 and Halo Infinite? Will we see Anders, Cutter, Isabel, and the rest of the Halo Wars 2 cast? I also hope that they answer the question of where some of these characters are, not to spoil the ending of Halo 5, but that's a big question at the end of Halo Wars 2. Will the Chief directly face off against Atriox? We've not really had a major epic boss battle in the Reclaimer saga just yet. In Halo 4, it wasn't really all that much, and in Halo 5, it was really just against Warden Eternal, so I would love to see a really epic battle that the player can interact with between Master Chief and Atriox. How will we deal with both the Banished and the Guardians slash Prometheans if they're both in the same game? Will the Banished actually fight alongside Master Chief against the Guardians and the Prometheans? You kind of saw this kind of dynamic change fluidly in Halo 3. Sometimes you would have the Flood on your side, other times the Covenant, and vice versa. So I wonder if the dynamics of how treaties and how these sorts of factions will fight against and alongside one another will change as the events of this campaign unfold. And finally, will this be Master Chief's last game? I know that they've alluded to, especially in Halo 4, that he's an aging Spartan with a malfunctioning AI in Cortana. But will this be Master Chief's last game? This character has been the face of this series for now 20 years. Will they continue to use the Master Chief moving forward? I know 343 has said that they want Halo Infinite to be the mainline Halo game for the next 10 years. So will we not see another Master Chief game for another 10 years after the launch of Halo Infinite? I'm not so sure. I hope that we get to continue to see the Chief because he's such a lovable character and just a great face of a franchise and really the Xbox brand in general. So I think that'll be a question that most likely won't get answered in the game itself, but maybe 343 will allude to that in the coming years following the release of Halo Infinite. So that's everything you need to know about Halo Infinite before you play. There's going to be probably more questions that come up and more questions that are answered as we get closer to release, but the game is launching December 2021 on pretty much every platform imaginable, and I'm really excited. I'm going to be covering the game here on the channel if this is your first time around. I'm going to be doing some Halo Infinite build-up news and in-depth videos, and I'm, of course, a huge Halo Wars 2 fan, so if you love Halo Wars 2, you've come to the right place. Alright, thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.